The silent invasion. The observation post at the edge of the Nixian Nebula had remained peaceful for over 2 standard cycles. The swirling purple gases created natural sensor disruptions, making it the perfect location for the collective's long-range monitoring station. Commander Vixtal stood before the panoramic view screen. All 6 of his secondary eyes focused on the unusual readings while his primary vision sphere rotated slowly, taking in the nervous movements of his crew. "Confirm these readings," he ordered, his voice a careful modulation of harmonic tones that conveyed authority without causing undue anxiety. "Ensure it isn't nebula interference." Senior analyst Zevra moved her appendages across the biometric interface, her scaled skin reflecting the ambient light in iridescent patterns. "Confirmation complete, Commander. The anomalies persist. Whatever traversed the Callisis corridor wasn't using standard propulsion technology." Vixtal's outer membrane tensed. The Callisis corridor, a narrow, navigable channel through the nebula, had been monitored for generations. It was one of only 3 safe passages into collective territory from that sector of space. The treaty establishing this arrangement was over 400 cycles old. "Species identification?" he asked, knowing the answer before Zevra responded. "Humans," she confirmed, the word causing a ripple of unease through the command center. "Their energy signatures are unmistakable. Inefficient but adaptable." Vixtal had never encountered humans personally, but their reputation had spread throughout the 12 species of the collective. A young race, barely 1,000 years into their interstellar development, yet already pushing boundaries that older, more established species approach with appropriate caution. They expanded rapidly, formed unusual alliances, and employed tactics that defied conventional strategic doctrine. They are aware this sector falls under collective protection. Vixtal directed his question to communication specialist Draxel. "The boundary markers are clear," Draxel replied, his voice resonating from multiple speech organs simultaneously. "They have received and acknowledged our automated warnings. And yet they continue." Vixtal finished the thought. Over the next 14 daily cycles, the humans didn't simply pass through. They established what appeared to be a research outpost on Jakes 792, a mineral-rich planetoid at the edge of collective space. The structure grew steadily, modest at first, then expanding with the efficient precision that characterized human engineering. Power readings suggested they were mining operations, harvesting resources that, while not officially claimed by the collective, were understood to be within their sphere of influence. "Should we dispatch a diplomatic vessel?" suggested Zevra during their daily strategic conference. "Perhaps they misunderstand our territorial boundaries." Vixtal's primary vision sphere clouded briefly with skepticism. "The humans don't misunderstand. They are testing us, probing for reaction. This is documented behavior." Science Officer Mevlak, the oldest among them, vibrated his sensory filaments in agreement. "Humans employ what they call creative ambiguity in their expansionist efforts. They establish footholds in contested regions, then negotiate from positions of physical presence." "Unacceptable," Vixtal declared. "The collective has maintained peace through clear boundaries and mutual respect for 12,000 cycles. We will follow protocol." The diplomatic mission departed the next day, carrying representatives from 3 collective species. They returned 6 days later, their vessel undamaged but their diplomatic efforts unsuccessful. "They claim research rights under Section 7 of the Interstellar Commons Accord," reported the lead diplomat, a graceful Thalarian whose bioluminescent communication patterns expressed deep concern. "They acknowledged our territorial claims, but insist their presence constitutes no violation." "Did they specify the nature of their research?" Vixtal asked. "Something about stellar anomalies within the nebula. They provided documentation, but much of it was opaque, technical language that our translators struggled with." Vixtal suspected deliberate obfuscation. The humans were known for this, creating plausible justifications that technically adhered to interstellar law while undermining its spirit. Over the subsequent weeks, the situation deteriorated. The human outpost doubled in size. Scans detected weapon emplacements, defensive in configuration, but weapons nonetheless. Then came the most troubling development: artifacts of unknown purpose being deployed into the nebula itself. They appear to be probes, Science Officer Mevlak reported. But their energy signatures are unlike any human technology we've documented. They're interacting with the nebula in ways I cannot precisely quantify. This crossed the threshold. The nebula, with its unique properties, fell under special protection statutes. The collective had maintained observational outposts for millennia, but always with minimal impact, never with active manipulation. "Prepare a warning flotilla," Vixtal ordered. 3 enforcement vessels, standard diplomatic complement, and 1 medical ship as required by protocol. "Is this wise, Commander?" Zevra asked privately after the others had departed. Humans have responded unpredictably to shows of force in previous encounters with other species. "This is not a show of force," Vixtal corrected. "It is a demonstration of our commitment to established boundaries. The flotilla will establish position and issue formal notification. The humans will comply or face graduated sanctions as outlined in Section 12 of our charter." Zevra's scales fluttered in a pattern that conveyed deep unease. "They are not signatories to our charter, but they are aware of it," Vixtal replied. "And they will respect it, as do all civilized species." The flotilla departed within a day, a small but impressive formation of collective vessels, their hulls gleaming with the characteristic blue-green luminescence of Thalarian biometallurgy. Each ship represented decades of careful engineering, designed for efficiency, sustainability, and, when necessary, precision enforcement. Vixtal monitored their approach from the command center. The mood was tense but controlled. The collective did not act rashly. This was a carefully calibrated response, following established protocols that had preserved peace for thousands of cycles. The flotilla established position 2 light minutes from the human outpost, close enough to demonstrate seriousness, distant enough to avoid perceived aggression. Standard communication protocols were initiated, transmitting in multiple formats to ensure clarity. The humans responded with unexpected swiftness, not with words, but with action. "Commander," Zevra's voice carried uncharacteristic alarm. "The human outpost has activated energy shields. Their power readings are spiking beyond previous measurements." Before Vixtal could process this, Draxel added, "They're transmitting, but not to our flotilla. It appears to be a directed tight-beam communication into deep space. They're calling for reinforcements." Vixtal realized aloud. This was not the behavior of researchers. This was military protocol. "Flotilla reports unusual activity within the nebula," Zevra continued. "The human probes are synchronizing somehow, creating energy patterns that are interfering with our sensors." Events accelerated rapidly from there. The flotilla commander, acting within protocol, moved the vessels closer, still maintaining a non-aggressive stance, but strengthening their position. The human outpost responded by launching what appeared to be defensive drones, small autonomous units that established a perimeter. "This is escalating beyond protocol parameters," Mevlak observed, his usually calm demeanor showing signs of stress. Neither side intended this progression, yet here we are. Vixtal faced a decision that would affect not just this encounter but potentially relations with humans for generations. The collective valued peace, but also clarity of boundaries. If the humans established a precedent here, other contested regions would soon face similar encroachment. "Order the flotilla to hold position," he commanded finally, "but activate primary defense matrices. We will not fire, but neither will we retreat." For 26 tense hours, the standoff continued. The human outpost maintained its shields. The collective flotilla held position. Communications were exchanged, but little progress made. The humans insisted on their right to conduct research. The collective insisted on adherence to territorial understandings. Then came the development that changed everything. "Space-time distortion detected," Zevra announced. her scales shifting to emergency coloration. Something is approaching via non-standard FTL. The human's reinforcements. Vixtal questioned. Unknown, but the signature is consistent with advanced human propulsion technology. Emergence expected in 40 seconds. Vixtal made a quick decision. Alert the flotilla. Maintain defensive posture only. Weapons charged but secured. The emergence was nothing like the collective had witnessed before. Space itself seemed to fold, creating a distortion that their sensors struggled to interpret. When it stabilized, a single vessel remained, sleek, angular, and unmistakably human in design. But unlike the utilitarian aesthetics of their outpost, this ship possessed an elegance that suggested purpose-built superiority. Classification. Vixtal demanded. Unknown, Mevlak replied, his scientific curiosity momentarily overriding his concern. Configuration suggests a warship, but its dimensions and energy output don't match any documented human military vessel. The newcomer moved with startling precision, positioning itself between the collective flotilla and the human outpost. It made no aggressive moves, but its presence alone altered the tactical situation completely. Incoming transmission, Draxel announced. Audio and visual. Display, ordered Vixtal. The command center's main projection field illuminated with the image of a human, female by their dimorphic characteristics, seated in what appeared to be the command center of the vessel. Her posture conveyed confidence without aggression, and when she spoke, the translation came through with unusual clarity. "This is Captain Elena Volkov of the UES Artemis," she stated. "I understand there's been a misunderstanding regarding our research outpost. Perhaps we can discuss this situation before it escalates further." Vixtal's primary vision sphere focused intently on the human captain. He noted the insignia on her uniform, unfamiliar, suggesting a specialized division. Behind her, the bridge of her vessel appeared remarkably advanced, staffed by humans who moved with practiced efficiency. Tactical analysis of the human vessel. He subvocalized to Zevra through their secure channel. Incomplete, she responded with uncharacteristic hesitation. "Our sensors are struggling. The ship appears to incorporate technology beyond what we've documented in human development. Weapon systems are present, but configuration is unusual." Vixtal returned his attention to the waiting human captain. This was not how he had expected this confrontation to proceed. The arrival of a single warship, however advanced, should not fundamentally alter the strategic balance against 3 collective enforcement vessels. And yet, something in the human captain's composed confidence gave him pause. The humans had a phrase he'd encountered in their diplomatic archives. "Brace yourselves." It seemed unexpectedly appropriate as he prepared to respond. "Captain Volkov," he began, his harmonics carefully modulated for formal diplomatic exchange, "your outpost has violated established territorial understandings and deployed unauthorized technology within a protected stellar phenomenon. The collective requires immediate cessation of these activities." Captain Volkov's expression remained unchanged. "Commander," she replied, somehow knowing his rank without introduction, "perhaps we should discuss what's actually happening here, rather than what appears to be happening. I believe you'll find our explanation quite illuminating." Before Vixtal could respond, Zevra interrupted with unmistakable alarm. "Commander, energy surge detected from within the nebula. The human probes are activating simultaneously." The confrontation had begun. Unconventional tactics. The command center of the observation post fell silent as the displays filled with impossible readings. The human probes within the nebula had activated in perfect synchronization, creating a network of energy signatures that pulsed in patterns too regular to be natural. "What are we seeing?" Vixtal demanded, his harmonics sharp with urgency. Science Officer Mevlak's sensory filaments trembled as he analyzed the incoming data. "They appear to be stabilizing the quantum fluctuations within the nebula, creating channels of some kind." On the main view screen, Captain Elena Volkov of the UES Artemis remained composed, watching their reaction with what appeared to be genuine interest rather than tactical calculation. Your flotilla is currently positioned within the radius of a Class 9 stellar anomaly, she explained, gesturing to someone off-screen. A moment later, the transmission included a data overlay showing energy patterns throughout the nebula. Our research outpost was established to monitor and, if necessary, neutralize the threat. This is deception, Zevra hissed privately to Vikstall. There have been no indications of unusual stellar activity within the nebula. Our observation post has monitored this region for cycles. Vikstall was inclined to agree, but before he could formulate a response, the nebula itself seemed to answer the question. A surge of energy cascaded through the purple gas clouds, momentarily illuminating the region with brilliant white light. The observation post's sensors registered a 12% spike in radiation. That, said Captain Volkov, pointing to the fading glow, is a precursor event. Without intervention, this will escalate to a full quantum cascade within 72 hours. The resulting space-time distortion would encompass your observation post and potentially threaten 3 habitable systems beyond the nebula's edge. Mevlak's analysis confirmed at least part of her claim. There is unusual quantum activity, Commander, not previously present in our baseline readings, or perhaps not previously detected by your equipment, Volkov suggested. The phenomenon operates primarily through subspace distortions that conventional sensors typically interpret as background noise. The implication was clear. Human technology had detected what collective science had missed. The suggestion itself was difficult for Vikstall to accept, and yet the evidence was manifesting before them. If what you claim is true, Vikstall replied carefully, why was the collective not informed through diplomatic channels? Why establish an outpost without consultation? Captain Volkov's expression shifted subtly, a human micro-expression that Vikstall's limited understanding of their physiology couldn't interpret. Time constraints, she answered simply. Our models predicted rapid acceleration of the phenomenon. Standard diplomatic protocols would have delayed intervention beyond the safe threshold. The conversation was interrupted by an alert from the flotilla. The lead enforcement vessel had detected additional energy signatures within the nebula, natural formations beginning to destabilize as the human probes continued their work. They're not causing the problem, Mevlak observed with growing concern. They appear to be responding to it. Vikstall faced a dilemma that no protocol had prepared him for. If the humans were correct, their intervention, however unilaterally implemented, was preventing a catastrophe. If they were engaged in deception, allowing them to continue could threaten collective security in ways he couldn't predict. We require verification, he finally told Captain Volkov. Allow a collective science vessel to approach your probes and conduct independent analysis. The human captain nodded. A reasonable request. We'll transmit safe approach vectors to your flotilla. The quantum instabilities make certain trajectories hazardous. The science vessel departed from the flotilla, following the coordinates provided by the humans. Vikstall watched tensely as it navigated through the swirling gases, approaching one of the human probes. Captain, Zevra said suddenly, her scales shifting to alert coloration. Energy surge detected from the Artemis. There. Before she could finish, space distorted around the human warship. For a horrifying moment, Vikstall thought they were witnessing some kind of attack. But instead of weapons fire, a field of shimmering energy expanded from the vessel, creating a protective bubble that enveloped not just the Artemis, but extended to encompass the collective flotilla as well. Simultaneously, the nebula erupted with energy, a quantum cascade that should have torn apart anything in its vicinity. Instead, the combined forces of the human probes and the Artemis's shield contained the blast, channeling its energy through carefully constructed pathways. Magnificent, breathed Mevlak, scientific wonder overriding military caution. They're using the quantum instability itself as a power source to stabilize the remaining disruptions. The display from the science vessel confirmed what they were witnessing. The human technology wasn't simply suppressing the anomaly. It was transforming it, converting destructive energy into sustainable equilibrium. Captain Volkov's voice came through again, now carrying a hint of strain. Your science vessel should withdraw to a safe distance. We're entering Phase 3 of the stabilization process. What followed defied conventional understanding of energy physics. The human probes began to pulse in a complex sequence, creating resonance patterns that spread throughout the nebula. The Artemis itself executed a series of precise maneuvers, positioning itself at key nodes within the energy network. They're creating a permanent damping field, Mevlak explained, his voice filled with both professional admiration and personal disbelief. Not just neutralizing the current instability, but preventing future occurrences. For 3 hours, the humans worked with methodical precision. The collective vessels maintained position, their original enforcement mission now transformed into witnesses to something unprecedented. When the process finally completed, the nebula had changed. Subtle differences in coloration and particle distribution that the science vessel's instruments confirmed represented a fundamental shift in its quantum structure. Captain Volkov appeared on the viewscreen once more, now showing visible signs of fatigue. Stabilization complete. The anomaly has been neutralized, and the damping field should prevent recurrence for approximately 80 years. We've transmitted the relevant data to your science vessel. Vixtel struggled to reconcile his initial suspicions with what he had witnessed. You understood our concerns about territorial incursion. Of course, Volkov nodded. But we also understood the urgency of the situation. Sometimes protocol must yield to necessity. Why a military vessel? Zevre interjected, giving voice to the question that had troubled them from the beginning. The Artemis is clearly designed for combat, not scientific research. For the first time, Captain Volkov smiled, a human expression that conveyed both amusement and understanding. The Artemis is classified as a multi-role response vessel. Yes, she carries defensive capabilities, but her primary function is rapid deployment to crisis points. When dealing with quantum instabilities, conventional research vessels lack the necessary power generation and structural integrity. She paused, then added, "Not all warships are built primarily for war, Commander. Sometimes, they're simply the tools best suited for dangerous environments." The discussion that followed established new parameters for cooperation. The human outpost would remain, now registered officially with the collective as a joint monitoring station. The Artemis would withdraw but could return if conditions warranted further intervention. Most significantly, data and technology would be shared, a rare concession from humans, who typically guarded their advanced developments carefully. As the negotiations concluded, Vixtel requested a private channel with Captain Volkov. "There is something I must ask," he said when the connection was secured. "You arrived precisely when needed, with exactly the right technology. This suggests you anticipated our response to your outpost." Volkov's expression remained neutral, but there was a subtle shift in her posture. "We conducted extensive modeling of potential scenarios, including collective enforcement protocols, including all relevant variables," she confirmed without elaboration. Vixtel's primary vision sphere clouded briefly. "You provoked this confrontation deliberately. The outpost's defensive posture, the visible weapons emplacements, these were calculated to trigger our response protocols." "I wouldn't characterize it as provocation," Volkov replied carefully. "Rather, expedited engagement. The anomaly required immediate attention, but we also recognize the importance of establishing proper channels with the collective for long-term stability in the region." "You could have destroyed our flotilla," Vixtel observed. It wasn't an accusation but an acknowledgement of reality. The technology he had witnessed possessed capabilities far beyond collective defensive systems. Captain Volkov's response was immediate and firm. "That was never considered as an option. The Artemis is designed to protect, Commander, even when that protection must begin with misunderstanding." As the human vessels continued their work and the collective flotilla maintained its observation role, Vixtel found himself reflecting on the encounter. The stories about humans had always emphasized their unpredictability, their willingness to break convention, their sometimes reckless courage. But perhaps there was more to understand. A complex species whose apparent chaos masked deeper patterns of forethought. One standard cycle later, with the crisis fully resolved and new protocols established for joint monitoring of the nebula, Vixtal composed his official report. After detailing the technical aspects of the encounter, he added a personal observation that would be widely circulated throughout collective space. When faced with a human warship, the correct response is not fear, but careful attention. They rarely approach without purpose, and that purpose is seldom what it first appears to be. In this instance, what appeared to be territorial aggression was in fact an unconventional response to an existential threat. Perhaps this offers broader insight into human expansion patterns that merit revaluation of our established assumptions. The UES Artemis departed the Nixian Nebula with little ceremony, slipping into its unusual FTL configuration and vanishing from sensors. The human outpost remained, now staffed with both human researchers and collective scientists, its original deception transformed into a model for cooperative crisis response. 6 cycles later, a similar quantum anomaly was detected in the Tarsus Rift, a remote region beyond collective space. Before Vixtal could even formulate recommendations, reports arrived of human vessels already on site, deploying the same technology they had demonstrated in the nebula. This time, there was no confrontation. Instead, collective vessels arrived with offers of assistance, which the humans accepted with what appeared to be genuine appreciation. Working together, they neutralized the anomaly in half the time. When Vixtal received notification of the successful joint operation, he found himself experiencing an emotion rare among his species, approval tinged with something like affection for these unpredictable, confounding humans. They do not follow established paths, he commented to Mevlak as they reviewed the operation reports. They create new ones where necessity demands. The science officer's sensory filaments rippled with amused agreement. Perhaps that is why we find them so disturbing and so fascinating. Somewhere in the vastness between stars, the UES Artemis continued its mission, a human warship whose approach no longer signaled conflict, but instead the possibility of unexpected solutions to impossible problems. The next time sensors detected its distinctive energy signature, collective commanders would not order defensive preparations, but instead a simple acknowledgement. Brace yourselves, a human warship is approaching. Let us see what impossibility they intend to solve today.